Good evening for those of you joining us in the East Coast, and good afternoon for those of you joining us out from the West Coast. My name is Gianni Quintana, and I'm the Marketing Manager at Lending One, and I will be your moderator on this webinar. We're glad you can make the time to join us for our educational webinar titled Landlording 101, Essential Tips for Becoming a Successful Rental Manager. We also want to thank Lucas Hall, CEO and founder of Landlordology and Head of Industry Relations at Cozy.co, for co-sponsoring this educational webinar and being our featured presenter today. And also our very own co-founder and COO at Lending One, Matt Neisser, who will also be discussing their private lending financing. A little housekeeping items before we get started. There are logistics for the webinar. We are going to be using GoToWebinar, and you'll see that you have a chat box. Please feel free to use it to send us chats and questions during the webinar. Those questions will be held and answered at the end of the presentation, but we are monitoring and I will be responding to you as you're on the webinar tonight. As an attendee, you're now going to be able to engage with the presenters via audio, so please use the chat feature to ask those questions. Some of you may want to also share this webinar, and we'll do our best to record it and post it and email it back to those who have attended. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll give a few minutes for those of folks that might be in the West Coast and stuck in traffic. So about 2 minutes. So if you want to, go get a glass of water and then come back, and we should start soon. Okay, well, the 2-minute courtesy is almost coming to an end. So without further ado, let's start today's presentation and passing it along to Lucas. Lucas?
The reason we built this presentation is that 90% of the problems can be solved by doing 10% of effort, right? I mean, it's kind of like it's a 90-10 rule, which is commonly used in employers. But basically, if you tweak your efforts by like 10% and just do a couple things differently, a couple main things differently, you can solve 90% of your problems and be more profitable. And that's what we're going to go through today. So without further ado, let's get rolling. The agenda tonight is, first we're going to talk about rental tips, just basic rental tips in that life cycle. Then we're going to cover the top 10 rental laws, which are nationwide. There's no national law, really. There is the Uniform Landlord-Tenant Act, but that's a optional law or guidance that was put out, and states don't have to adapt to that. So every state is different. And so it's really important that you learn what your state laws are, but we're going to go through the main themes, the things that you just generally need to look out for, and things that are kind of common across the board. And then lastly, we're going to talk about resources, of which are Landlordology and Cozy and Lending One. And so these are all fantastic resources, and we'll get into some more that are free, and you can dive in. Also, if you should see on your right, you should see have like a documents or handout section. And Gianni, if you haven't already, go ahead and upload that notes there, and look for that in the next couple of minutes, guys. What you can do is print that out, and it should be a PDF. Print that out, and that is just, it's not the slide deck, but it's actually just notes where you can take it. It goes through the same followed outline that we have tonight. So it makes it real easy to follow along, and we even, in the slides that we have here, we put things in red that kind of emphasize it. So let's get going. So who am I? All right, why are we here? Why are you listening to me? Again, I'm Lucas Hall. I am a landlord of about 11 years. I have 5 properties in 3 states with about 17 residents at any given time. I used to be an IT consultant for DoD and the Treasury Department and a couple other agencies, and I helped them build some of the largest networks and databases and infrastructure on the planet. I mean, we're talking about taxes and things like that. So I would consult with different departments in the government and help them figure out how to do it better from a technology standpoint. So I know a little bit about technology, but I also decided as I was building a rental portfolio that there really wasn't much out there that catered to what I needed to know as a landlord, and at least there wasn't much out there that didn't cost $1,000 for a course or something. So I decided to just build it, and that's where Landlordology came from. So if you're unfamiliar with that, that's a website I found. It's an ultimate resource for you as a landlord and property manager, and it's completely free. So it has everything in there that you could need or want. And then lastly, Cozy is a company that makes software for landlords, and I am head of industry relations there, and part of my job is to go out and help educate people nationwide, and so that's why we're here. This is Landlordology. It's the baby that I built, and very proud of it. It's got a ton of information, so definitely visit that after the webinar and feel free to check it out. As I mentioned, I work for Cozy. If you're unfamiliar with Cozy, Cozy was founded by, or I should say seeded by Google, and has some of the best backers on the planet. It is designed to change and revolutionize the rental industry, and it's completely free. So what do we do at Cozy? Well, we do four things. One is we help you market your listings and your vacancies, and you can syndicate your listings of your property with beautiful pictures, and you can put that out to different sites, as well as you'll get a URL that you can share, so we'll help you market it. And then once you find applicants through that listing, you can actually screen them through Tenant or through Cozy. You can get the credit report and background check, which are full detailed credit reports, and those are free for you. And then you can collect those online applications as well, so it's all in one nice, neat little bundle. And then when you find good tenants, you can actually roll them into online rent payments. And again, that is free, so you can collect rent online without having to pay any monthly fees or transaction fees or unit fees or anything. It's free for you, and if it's through a bank transfer, it's free for the tenant. If they pay with a credit card, there's a small transaction fee, but that's typical. And then lastly, education, and that's through Landlordology and through webinars like this. So these are all things that we do, and again, it's 100% free for you as a property manager or landlord. So that's the initial spiel. Now for the really exciting part. This is the meat and potatoes. Very good. Gianni, are we good to go here? Okay, cool. All right, so rental tips. We'll start out, and first, if you haven't already printed out that webinar show notes, go ahead and do that, and you'll be able to follow along really easily. As Gianni said, we are trying to record this, so please know that we're giving it our best shot, and we'll put it up line if it looks great and there's no hiccups. But again, let's start with the very first phase of being a landlord, right? You have a property and you need to find tenants, right? You need to put it out there. So this is just advertising. How do you advertise? What do you do with your listings or showings? And in this, I think nationwide, and this is not true for every city, but generally nationwide, Craigslist is still number one, hands down. It has the most traffic. Well, Zillow would argue that, but it definitely, for me, I get the most number of inquiries from Craigslist. But you shouldn't just use Craigslist because it is a little skeezy, it is a little funny, and just you don't quite know who you're talking to sometimes, and there's a lot of spam that comes through, but still a good source. I suggest, in addition to posting your listing on Craigslist, use Zillow and Cozy. So Zillow will syndicate your ad to a variety of other networks. Cozy will also syndicate your ad to other networks, so you kind of cast the widest net. So between those three sources, you can catch more tenants, you can catch more applicants, and it makes it real easy. So if you build that platform around a listing that you build in Cozy, you now have like this URL that you can send everybody to, and they can fill out an application online, and you'll get a credit report and a background check. So it's real easy. Pictures. Now this is a no-brainer for most, but I think that pictures are key to a killer rental ad. If you don't have pictures, then you might as well not post at all. It just isn't going to work. I promise you. And one of my relatives has been doing rentals for years, like 40 years, and he used to post it in newspapers, and you had to pay for the letter every time he did that. So, his Craigslist ads were very similar, and it would be just like a sentence, and he would abbreviate words, and and be real short, and he never got any listings, or he never got any interested parties. And so, we fixed that real quick, but you need to put pictures in there, and I specifically want you to put in beautiful pictures. So if you just put pictures you took with your iPhone, which it can have a good camera, but if you're not doing lighting well, or if you're not thinking about cleaning up, or the basic common sense stuff, you're not going to get any inquiries, right? They're going to think it's a dump. So it doesn't matter if a tenant's living there, just do your best. And if you can, hire a professional photographer. One of my favorite companies is a company called Circle Pix. It's circlepix.com, and they're pretty nationwide. And I don't think they're everywhere, but they're most everywhere. And they will come to your house for, I think, like $125 or $150, and they will actually take beautiful pictures and 360-degree pictures where you can look around, in the whole room, and really creates a good first impression. So they're worth checking out. But you can hire a photographer off Craigslist, and get the same quality if you pick a good one. So make sure that when a tenant looks at it, they have that ooh pretty effect. Like they see it and they go, oh, that's pretty. Like, here, honey, let's go look at this one. Okay, anyway, but once you find somebody who is interested, they're inquiring about the property, they really want to see it, that's when you set up something called a landlord's open house. And a landlord's open house is not a typical open house that a real estate agent might do. But in fact, well, I should just compare that. So typical open house is where somebody sits at the house from like 1 to 4 on a Sunday, and they just let traffic come through. And 90% of that traffic is neighbors who are inquiring and just want to see the house. You don't want that. Those neighbors are not going to rent your place. So what you want instead is you want to put out your ads and then start collecting appointments. So you don't want to have, quote unquote, an open house. You certainly want to have just appointments that are back to back. So set them up 30 minutes apart, back to back, all in one day. So what I do is I tell my tenants, hey, listen, I've got a bunch of people coming through between 1 and 4 on Saturday. Like, it'd be great if you could leave and just go catch a movie, go get lunch or whatever, but just don't be here, and I'll only take up 3 hours of your time. And I've got 6 showings, during that time. And some aren't going to show up, but make sure you get their cell phone number and you're able to follow up with them. So I think that is hands down the most effective way that I can use my time to show my property. And what it does is it creates a buzz around your property. So when people are coming and going all within a short period of time, it creates the sense of like, ooh, there's a lot of interest, like I need to jump on it. And more often than not, they'll want to put in an application that day. So give that a try. It certainly works for me. Now, when you find somebody who is interested and they've seen the place and they're like, great, I need to jump on it, you can do applications. Right? You have to do that. That's how you get their information. So you have a variety of methods. One is where you collect a paper application, you print some freebie off a website, and that's so old school. So, I mean, you can do that, and no offense to anybody who does it, but you're collecting personal information, and it's a security risk to you should anything happen. So, if you're not keeping that information safe, locked up in a file cabinet somewhere in your office with limited access to your employees or to your family members, and their identity gets stolen, then you're a candidate for, you might be liable for it because you didn't take proper precautions. And believe it or not, that is something that is often regulated by state laws. So again, use online applications because that data gets put somewhere that's safe and secure and more safe than your file cabinet in your house. Generally speaking, and this is something that I get hate mail on, but you do not need to collect the Social Security number of people who are interested in applying to your place or people who are applying. So you do not need a Social Security number in this modern day and age to run a background check and a credit report. Cozy does it every single day. We sell hundreds and hundreds of reports every single day, and we don't give the landlord the Social Security number. Now, I do think that it is important that you capture that Social Security number at the lease signing. I certainly want to have that number of all my actual tenants, but I don't really want to have it of my 20 or 30 different applicants, right? I mean, that's just a liability waiting to happen. So don't collect it for screening. Use modern tools like Cozy to do those inquiries and those credit checks. And then when you finally get a tenant, when you finally accept somebody, get it put on the lease or, have them fill it out that way. So, and know that we do verify their Social Security number and their identity, but we don't actually provide that to the landlord for, liability and security reasons. So, number 3, collect applications from all adult occupants. Actually, that should read applicants. But basically anybody that is going to live in your house, or anybody who is co-signing that isn't an adult, you need to have an application for, because they each have their own credit report, they each have their own background check. Just because one of the spouses is clean and makes $100,000 or $200,000 and with no debt doesn't mean that the other spouse isn't up to her eyeballs in debt and has 2 felonies and arson convictions and all these other things. So you need to check it all. The only people you don't check it on is minors. You do check credit reports for people who are co-signing because, heck, they're co-signing, right? They're financially backing them, so you need to know they're financially stable. But that's the gist for applications. So those are the 3 most important things that I think you should know when you're collecting applications. Now on to screening tenants. So once you have those applications, you need to make sure that they're legit, right? So these are the 2 things, and this is so critical. If you only learn one thing out of this whole presentation, I think it's this right here. So when you're screening an applicant, make sure that they meet two things, right? Are they able and willing to pay rent? You know, I've met a lot of people with a lot of money, but they also have a chip on their shoulder, and sometimes they like to delay their bills, or just, you know, sometimes they like to just not pay rent just because it's inconvenient, or just because they forgot, or they're just not they're not able to, or they're not with it enough to just make sure that that gets paid, or they just sometimes want the power trip. I mean, I know people who do that too. They think it, you know, it's just the way they work. So make sure that they're able and willing to pay rent. So I actually had a guy once who applied to my place. It was a $1,600 condo or apartment. It was a studio, and he only made about $1,200 a month. And I told him, hey, listen, man, you sound great. You know, background check comes back okay. Like, you know, I like you, but you don't make enough. Not even for groceries, you don't make enough. So, and he goes, oh, it's okay. I didn't know you were asking for all my income. I've actually got a trust fund that I get monthly payments from. And I said, well, that's kind of important, right? And sure enough, you know, that we were able to qualify him based on that. So you got to look at the whole picture there. Anyway, number two, I often, every single time, I call the former two landlords. This is critical. You don't want to call the last person, right? Because the last person might be trying to kick them out, and they might say anything to get them to leave. But if you call the landlord before that, you can actually find out how they left the property. Did they clean up? Did they fix the problems? Did they treat you with respect? Did they pay their last month's rent? You know, did you have to withhold the deposit? Because the current landlord isn't going to know that because they haven't moved out yet, but the last one before that will. So I often ask them a barrage of questions, but then I say, would you rent to them again? It's an open-ended question. They can answer however they want. Usually they'll say yes or no. And I think that generally speaking, if they say yes, that's a good sign, right? Even if they were late once on rent, like above all, they were worth it. And that's all you really want to know. So these are the three, sorry, not three, these are the federal 7. That's what I call them. The classes, the protected classes that you can't touch. So you cannot discriminate based on these 7 things: the race, color, religion, sex, national origin, familial status, or disability. Now, let's go through those real quick. I think everyone knows what race, color, religion, and sex is, but then national origin, meaning where they're from, right? You can't discriminate. It doesn't talk about citizenship. It just is saying you can't not rent to somebody because they're from China, or they're Haitian, or, you know, they're Italian, or whatever, you know, if they're from Italy. So you can't do that, but you can, in many parts of the country, you can discriminate based on citizenship. Not California or a couple other states, but in a lot of parts you can. And then familial status typically refers to kids. It's a broad term, but it typically applies to anyone who has kids or anyone who is pregnant, and you can't discriminate based on that. So you can't say, I want to rent to the couple without kids versus the couple with 2 kids, as long as the place is big enough. Now, you need to go check your occupancy rules, which is usually defined at the county level. So every county has like a code enforcement office, and so you can go down there, talk to the people. They'll whip out this giant book, you know, and they'll look through it and find the statute or the code for that county on what the occupancy is. And it could be anything from 2 people per bedroom as the rule for the county, or it could be something weird like in my county, you're only allowed 4 people if one of them is unrelated, but you can have unlimited people if they're all related. So that gets the county into some trouble, but you know, and lots of issues where you have tons of cousins living all together. But that's a way around familial status. So to pull it back together, guys. So if you're considering tenants and one of them has 20 kids and the other one has 2 kids, and your place would not be, it would be a code violation of the occupancy rule if you rented to the person with 20 kids, then you can certainly discriminate based on the size of the occupants or the size of the family, because the government is making that rule up. So, and lastly, disability. This can be a barrage of things, but if they have actual disability, and that could be mental or physical, then you can't not rent to them for that. Now, however, if they have special needs, for example, they might need a like a ramp built to get up to the door, you actually can't stop them from building that ramp. So you can say, in many parts of the country, you can say, listen, you need to put aside an escrow account, like money to repair whatever it is that you're doing to remove that ramp and fix the wall and all that stuff, but you can't stop somebody from building something they need for a disability. The only situation where you might be able to say no thank you is if they were going to do something that was just drastically detrimental to the property itself. I can't think of a great example, but if they, I don't know, if they were super sensitive to light, maybe that was somehow a disability and they wanted to brick in all your windows, that would be an extreme situation that you could certainly deny them for. But building ramps or installing handrails and stuff like that is not. Lastly, sex offender is not a protected class. Despite many people's opinion, it is not a protected class in any state. What I mean by sex offender is somebody who's been convicted of a sexual offense or sex crime and has to register with the database. And that URL, nsopw.gov, is the National Sex Offender Public website, and that's a Department of Justice thing. So you can check it out. It's kind of scary. You can look up stuff, and I'm not saying sex offenders necessarily shouldn't get housing. I'm just saying that they're not a protected class, and so some people say that you can't discriminate on them, but it's still a conviction. It's still a conviction, no matter how you look at it. Some cases are worse than others, obviously, but I think in any situation, if you should know if they're on that list, and then you should handle it on a case-by-case situation. I know someone who was convicted and is on that list because he pulled over on the side of the road and was going to the bathroom in the woods, and nobody was around. It was like midnight on a Saturday or something, and a cop pulled him over, and now he's a convicted sex offender. So there's extreme cases, but at least it's worth looking into. That's my point. Industry standards. These are my standards, and these are typically what the industry will accept. So I think when you're screening someone, definitely use this as a baseline, but then set your own standards to fit whatever your situation is, as long as you're not discriminating, and then stick to those. So make sure that you stick to your standards or these standards across the board. So every applicant that comes in, make sure that you treat them exactly the same. So what are these standards, right? If you're considering an applicant and you need to look at their income, right? You absolutely do. This is what I would say is 2 to 3 times the monthly rent. So if your rent is $1,000, you need their total household income between all the adults who are making money. You need that income to be 2 to 3 times the rent. 3 times is better. 2 times works in some parts of the country, but I would say for sure 2 to 3 times, no less. And if they don't meet that standard, then they don't meet your criteria, and then you just reject them. Again, that's gross income, not net, so that's before taxes. Number 2, no evictions ever. I don't care if it was 10 years ago. What I mean by an eviction is not that the landlord terminated the lease. That's not an eviction. An eviction is an actual court judgment where they go to court, and the landlord and the tenant had an argument, and the landlord was trying to kick him out, right, for whatever reason, and the tenant said, I don't think you're right, I think I'm right, and I'm going to go to court over it. And the judge heard the case, and the judge said, no, sir, you were not right, and therefore you have to leave. So they fought the landlord and were wrong. So if they were right, good for them. But if they were in the wrong and the judge convicted them of that eviction and forced them to leave, then that is a big deal, because that means they are standing up to basic contract law. And I don't want anybody who thinks that they're above that. Number 3, consider convictions in the last 2 years. I used to say don't accept anybody in the last 2 years who had a conviction. But there was a recent HUD memo or guidance that came out that said that that can be considered discriminatory simply because there are more African Americans and Hispanics that commit crimes than Caucasians or other races. So that can be considered, if you're just throwing a blanket statement out there, it can be considered wrong. But whether you agree with it or not, that's a memo. It's not law, but it's a suggestion from the housing department. So as a result, anytime there's a conviction in the last 2 years, talk to them, consider it, think about it and say, what's this about? And you should have some information on paper too, but check it out and just learn more. And then number 4, no violent or armed crimes. I don't want to deal with somebody who has beaten another person or committed an armed robbery or shot somebody or stabbed somebody. I just don't want those people in my house or my community, because I'm going to have to work with them. I'm going to have to deal with them, and the neighbors are going to have to deal with them. And if they keep a baseball bat behind the door, I don't want to be standing on the other side of the door. It's just that simple. And then most importantly, I think probably no or low credit card debt. I think credit card debt is just the killer of everyone's joy. It is just the way we live now in America, and it shouldn't be. And I think that the borrower is truly slave to the lender. So if they're in debt up to their eyeballs, then they're not going to make a great tenant. It's as simple as that. They're going to pay the noisiest customer first, or the squeaky wheel, and that most of the time won't be you. So now that you screen somebody, what do? Right? The next step is to collect a deposit from them. And sometimes you sign a lease first, but sometimes you collect a deposit. Depends on how you work it. But I like to collect deposits. I like to say, great, thank you, you've been accepted, congratulations, but in order for me to take this unit off the market, you need to give me a 1-month deposit as an earnest money deposit, and I will keep that, and I'll roll that over into an actual security deposit when you sign the lease and move in. But in the meantime, if you back out and you say, I don't want it anymore, and I've wasted 3 weeks on you, then that's an earnest money deposit that I get to keep for myself. I realize I'm talking very fast, so forgive me. I get riled up about all this stuff, and I live it day to day, so forgive me. And also, I want to make sure that we have enough time for Q&A. So at the end, we will do Q&A. And and that's honestly where I love to spend a lot of time, because that's where it really matters, I think. So for deposits, collect a deposit before or at the lease signing. So I want to emphasize before or at. So don't sign a lease until you've got some money, right? Because if you sign that lease, yeah, they're in violation if they don't give you the deposit, especially if it's stated, but that's just, that money is a perfect way for them to kind of seal the deal. So make sure you get that money before or at the lease signing. And then 2, generally speaking, and this changes a little bit from state to state, but generally speaking, you can use a security deposit for 2 things, really 2 things only. It can be used as compensation for you, against financial or material damages, right? There's all these rumors out there saying you can't use a security deposit to pay for rent. You can't use, well, you can't. let me clarify that. But if the tenant leaves, right, if they just abandon the lease, then you can use that deposit against any financial or real physical damages they do to the property. They, however, can't designate to use the deposit as last month's rent, because then you wouldn't have a deposit for damages. So anyway, that's what I was saying. But keep that in mind. You can use it for anything, really, that's financial or physical damages. It could be a broken window. It could be that they never paid their late fee. That's legitimate, if it's a legitimate late fee. I won't get into that, but sometimes you don't want to do that, but you could. Just it's not worth it. But you could certainly do it for rent. And anything else they might owe you. So don't get too upset. It's pretty simple. And number 3, don't commingle your funds. This is so key. Almost every state has a rule about this, and it's basically that you should take the deposit and you should keep it in a separate bank account or some sort of escrow or trust fund or trust account or something where the money doesn't get mixed with any sort of rent or operating funds. Because if it does, then you oftentimes lose the right to withhold any money from that deposit, because you don't have a good record of whose money is whose or whose is whom. So I think that what's best is, if you're a small landlord, go ahead and make a single checking account, something you have check writing privileges from, for each of your properties or units, and then you just stick the money right in there. Don't touch it. It's the only money that's in there. You know exactly how much it is, and you know how much interest it's earned. And then if you have a lot of units, then establish a trust account where you can dump all the deposits into, and track it financially in an accounting system. Pretty easy, but if as soon as you commingle funds, even if you take that deposit, put it in your checking account, and then later move it to another account, that's still commingling because it sat into your checking account or your operating account for a long time, or even a few days. It doesn't really matter. Now, once you actually get the deposit and you are trying to get them to sign that lease, that's the biggest step, right? From the time I accept an applicant, I say, congratulations, I'd love to have you at my place, to the lease signing, I try to make that as fast as possible because that's their window of opportunity to leave, right? I don't want them to leave. Even if they're throwing a deposit out, I don't want them to abandon it. I need tenants. So I try to get them to sign it quickly. The key here is, with any lease signing situation, is make sure that you have a rock-solid lease and stick to it. Holy moly, stick to it. Make sure you know what that lease says and make sure it's a really good one. And if you found a free rental lease online, please throw that in the trash. Please, 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 because you're going to stand to lose thousands of dollars if somebody tries to take advantage of that free lease that you found online. Make sure that you go either to an attorney in your area who can give you a solid lease, or go buy one from a number of websites that offer legally reviewed state-specific rental leases. So if you go to landlordology.com under our services directory, there's a couple really great ones, and those are all sites that we don't get any commission off it or anything. I just think they're really great. So I've gotten some of my leases from there, and I think that it's worth looking into. So there's a couple options there for you. Number two, make sure that every adult occupant signs a lease with joint and several liability. So the situation where this happens a lot of times is where you have maybe a husband and wife or two spouses and they have kids or whatever, and only the breadwinner or only the person with the income signs the lease. Well, what happens when they get a divorce or they break up, or now that one person, maybe that breadwinner, leaves, and now you have somebody who also has two kids and they're in your place and they don't have any income and they can't pay you. So now you're left evicting a family, and you didn't really want to. So make sure that you put everybody who's an adult on that lease, and make sure your lease has joint and several liability, which is like the Three Musketeers, right? They're all in it, all for one, one for all. They all are responsible for the whole amount. All right. Number three, review the entire lease with your applicants and use e-signature tools. So what I mean by this is if you're a small landlord or independent landlord and you have the time, then I suggest you say, hey guys, I'm super excited that you are renting from us, and I would love to take you to coffee. Let's go meet at Starbucks, and I'll buy you all coffee, and let's just go through this lease. It's maybe 10, 12 pages at max. I mean, I hope your lease isn't 30 pages because that's a little overkill, but, make it, show up, have copies for them. You sign all those copies if you're doing it in person, and then just go through it. Make sure that they understand all of the fees, the possible fees that could happen, because that is where they usually get surprised. So go through them line by line, just state it how it is, and then if you can sign it digitally, that's a great option too. I do that as much as I can, and I still try to go through the lease with them maybe later, or I'll do that over the phone is sometimes what I'll do. So use these three companies. These are companies that I recommend, and I've used all of them: HelloSign, SignNow, and DocuSign. HelloSign is the cheapest. SignNow is a little more expensive but has more features, and DocuSign is like the industry standard for attorneys and accountants, and it's an amazing tool with lots of features, but just for a lease signing, it's kind of like shooting a fly with a cannon. It's a little overkill. So check out the other two, all three if you want. Depends on your need. Now, once they've signed the lease, they're super excited about being there. They really want to move in, and you got to help them. It's your job. You know this drill better than anybody else, so you got to help them. So what do, right? Specify your move-in times and move-out times in the lease. This is something that I rarely see, but it's so important, and it is one thing that has affected my business hands down, probably more than most of the other clauses. And even if I have this in my lease, I will get inquiries of like a week or two before it's move-in day, and they will say, hey, listen, I got to be out of my place on the 29th, but this lease doesn't start on the 1st. Can I move in early? Or I want to move in at 6 a.m. on the move-in day. Can I do that? Well, if you don't put a move-in time, and it's kind of like a hotel check-in time, you know, check-ins at 10, check-outs, or check-ins at 4, check-ins at 10 or whatever. If you don't put that in there, then you really can't say no, right? Because then they would legally have the right to access that unit all day. But if you say in your lease that move-in is at 2 o'clock and move out is at 10 o'clock on the very last day of the lease, 10 a.m. What does that do, right? So if the people are moving out at 10 a.m. on the 30th, and then the next people move in at 2 o'clock on the 1st, the following day, that gives you almost 28 hours where you can get in there, clean it up, you can hire professionals, and if you know what's coming, like if you go and you do a couple inspections before the lease is up, you can hire a roofer to replace a whole roof in 28 hours. Like, it's not hard. I mean, it's hard, but I've never done it. It's hard, but they can do it. They can do it quickly. They can replace all the carpet in a house in 28 hours. So if you know what's coming, you can do that. So definitely set those move-in times. I like 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Do not give them keys any earlier than day one of the lease. This is a hands-down rule I have. If the place is vacant, or if you know it's going to be clean and ready by that move-in date, then I say, yes, it's available, but we can modify your lease. So I never actually give it to them for free. I say, listen, I need you in a lease contract whenever you live in this property. I'm not going to have you there for 2 days where you're not really in the contract, right? So I make them pay for those days. That sounds ruthless, but that's part of setting a lease and sticking to it. So if you're kind of hard up front and you say, this is the rule and the lease is the bad guy, not me, then you're going to be able to carry their respect. You know, you're going to be able to be a little lighter later if you want to. If you want to forgive late fees or whatever later on, you can do that. But it's so much harder to be easy on the front end and harder on the back. So number 3, allow the tenant to do the move-in inspection. Please, please, please don't do it yourself and say this is the condition, because you're not giving them a say in the matter. Now, if you were to go to court, the judge is going to say, well, you did that all on your own. The tenant had no say. How did, he didn't sign off on this. So you wouldn't win that. And I'm not a lawyer, so not legal advice, but you wouldn't win that. So what I do is I know what the condition is. I do kind of an inspection between move in and move out, and then I let them do it. I have them fill out this whole thing. So that way they can actually put down the issues. And it's like a to-do checklist where if there's repairs, I know what to do. Lastly, number 4, when they move in, hands down, the best thing I ever started doing was giving them a $10 move-in gift of bathroom essentials. Now, it took me years to figure this out. I used to give like Target gift cards or Apple gift cards, and they were thankful. I mean, they were sort of thankful, but then when I started giving them toilet paper, they were like, oh my God, you're the best landlord ever, right? Because they're moving. Move-in day is a sweaty day, especially if it's the middle of August. They're hot, and what I do with these lists, and I actually detail it on an article on Landlordology, with this gift comes toilet paper, a little toiletry soap bar, like a little Dove soap bar, a shower liner, not a curtain, but a shower liner, those clear shower liners, and then the little things that hold it up top, the little grommets, and then a roll of paper towels. So those 4 things you can get for about, $10, and you can get them individually wrapped. Do that, and they will think you're just the most amazing person ever. Because when their daughter has to go to the bathroom and they realize that your place didn't come with toilet paper, then it's awkward. So, collecting rent. For collecting rent, so certainly make it automatic and put it online. If you are still collecting cash, oh my gosh, we help a lot of landlords on Landlordology. It's upwards of 3.5 million people a year. The stories I've heard about people collecting cash, every single one of them has a story of being robbed at one point. So don't do it. It's better to make it automatic, make it online, make it mobile friendly, and that's where you use tools like Cozy. So Cozy does all that, and it's free, and your tenants love it. So to be honest, when I started using Cozy over 2 years ago, I have not had a single late payment. Hundreds of tenants so far since I used Cozy, and they will love you for it. So when I told my last tenants who were moving in, a few months ago about how they can pay their rent online. They were like, oh my God, thank you. Like I can finally get rid of my checkbook, right? And there's that moment in time where you get your first, email notification where you're like, hey, guess what? Your rent is being deposited. And you're like sitting on your couch in your living room watching Sunday football, and it's just like, that was easy, right? I mean, it's just, that's how it should feel. So, late fees. So when you're collecting rent, you got to deal with late fees. Again, put this in your lease, but please, 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 make sure you charge a one-time late fee, typically around 5 to 10%. If you have a large rent amount, maybe 5% is sufficient. And also check your state laws on that. But a one-time late fee, typically due the day after the grace period, and in some states you don't even have to have a grace period. So for me, rent is due on the 1st, and on the 2nd they get a one-time late fee since there's no grace period. And then collect daily late fees. Now I know that sounds ruthless, right? But if they get that late fee on the 2nd, there is no motivation for them to actually pay rent between the 3rd and the 30th because they've already accrued that late fee. It's already a sunk cost. Why would they pay rent when they can just go buy a TV that they've always wanted or fix the car and then delay that rent even more? Now you're going to be a full month behind, right? So if you have daily late fees, and I recommend a small amount, maybe $20. On the 3rd, if they don't pay, it's another $20. On the 4th, it's $20. On the 5th, it's another $20. And it works really well. So they will pay you by like the 5th, right? Or less. So they don't want to accrue those late fees. Make it just painful enough for them to act. Now, if they do pay, I suggest you be a good landlord and you just say, listen, I'm sorry, like you got to do that one-time fee, but I'll waive the $20 or whatever. Make it seem like you're not as ruthless. And check your state laws because sometimes you can only collect up to, maybe 10% is the total amount you could ever collect on a fee, including any daily late fees. Set up an operating bank account. I mentioned this a little bit earlier where you need to set up a separate account for deposits or a trust account for deposits, but also set up a separate bank account for your business. Even if it's not in a business name, even if you're not doing an LLC or whatever, just get a separate account and then have all your rent go through there. Don't mingle it with all your other income from other jobs or whatever. Just make it real easy. And then also pay your rent or pay your mortgages and pay your expenses out of that same account. And that way you know how much you're making on your properties. Because if you mix it all together, believe it or not, like it's going to get spent on school supplies. I know at my house it would be. So, okay, number 4, don't collect the last month's rent. This is a bold statement that a lot of people don't agree with, but my experiences and my research has shown that many states, including Massachusetts, which is just the one I thought of off the top of my head, says that you can't use last month's rent for any damages other than last month's rent. So you collect this extra money, but you can't use it unless they skip out on last month's rent or they agree to pay it early, like what they're doing. So what that means is if you really want more security, more comfort that they're not going to skip out on the last month, then just collect a bigger deposit because you can use a deposit for damages physically or financially. It's as simple as that. Last month's rent you can only use for last month's rent. So don't get yourself into that bind, and a lot of times you even have to put last month's rent in a prepaid account or a separate escrow account for prepaid rent, and then you have to collect interest on it. So why even go through that extra step when you don't have to, right? So if you need more money, just collect a bigger deposit. Most states allow up to 2 months usually. It is different in each state, but generally speaking 2 months. Repairs. So they've moved in, they're paying rent, everything's grand, but they call you and they say that, hey, listen, the sink is leaking, it's midnight. I will preface this with saying in the 11 years and hundreds of tenants I've never had a midnight clogged toilet phone call or a repair job at midnight. They always are respectful, they always wait, and I think that comes from being a respectful landlord. But if there was an emergency, if your basement is flooding at midnight, like you want them to call you. You want them to tell you because that's a big deal. So, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But whenever you get these, acknowledge it within a few hours. Just let them know you're there. Like, I heard you. I'll let you know when I have an update. That's all you got to do. Make sure that you you could tell them to call you anytime. I do, simply for that flooded basement reason, but in your situation it might be a crazy idea. So you can certainly make yourself available via text message, and then you can put your phone in sleep mode or whatever if you need to. But be available text message. My experience has been anybody under the age of 28 right now, they prefer to notify you via text. So it's a great way to meet them where they're at. Number 3, give them proper notice every single time you go over. So if that means that that you're going to show up, make sure that you let them know within your state rules. Most of the time, that's 24 hours. If you violate that and you just show up out of the blue, you can get yourself in trouble, seriously. And then number 4, if you need to do repairs and you're not doing it, you can use a lockbox, but make sure that you only give that lockbox combo to every to trusted contractors. And I would suggest even changing that combo every time you do have a repair, unless it's like one contractor that you trust, or you have one maintenance guy or whatever, a team that you've already vetted. But if it's different contractors, then do that. And just make sure that your tenants know what's happening, but never give your tenants a lockbox combination, because they will use the key when they lock themselves out and they won't return it. Oops. All right, here we go. We're towards the end here. So if they they finish their lease out and now they need to decide, am I going to renew this place or not? Am I going to move out or not? So what do you do here? What are some big tips? So number 1, require that they give you notice of non-renewal 60 days out. This is something you would need to put in your lease, that they're required to give you 60 days notice if they aren't going to stay, right? If they're going to stay, it doesn't matter. But if they want to move out, you want to make sure that you have at least to start the clock and start looking for a new tenant. 60 days is key. I think my best tenants usually get signed around 40 to 30 days out. So by the time it's like 20 days from the end of the lease, I'm dealing with desperate tenants who are getting kicked out, or people who just can't plan their life well. And if they can't plan a move 60 days out, then they're not going to be able to plan paying rent. It's just common sense. So I don't like dealing with last-minute tenants. Number 2, don't always raise the rent. Use rent as a negotiation tactic. If you have a great tenant who always pays on time and is courteous and takes care of the place, you want them to stay as long as possible. So say I will not raise the rent if you renew, and use that as incentive. Yes, I know inflation goes up every 3% every year or so, but if a good tenant stays for 3 years, you're going to make that cost up in quality, rent collection, and all that. Plus, when they move out, you can just raise the rent 10%. You can make up that difference easy. So within 1 year, the next time, you're going to be making it up. So I use that hands down every single time, and if I want them to stay, that's the tool I use. And that typically does it if they were on the fence. So if they were going to leave anyway, it wouldn't matter. So I host showings about 4 to 6 weeks out. Again, I mentioned 30 days to 45 days out. I typically want to show them, show the property and when the tenant's in there. I do want the tenant to clean a little bit. I will even ask them to clean. If I've had a good relationship and been respectful, they'll do it because they want their deposit back, and not that I'm holding it over their head, but I certainly want them to think, I'm really asking you to do this, and please just make it nice so I don't have to come over a bunch. And they're pretty okay with it. But that's the window. That's the perfect window, honestly, 4 to 6 weeks out. And then when they are moving out, when they are finally leaving, make sure you give them a cleaning list. So make sure it's something that's specific to that unit or that property, and say, this is what I want you to do. These are the expectations I have if you're going to get the full deposit back. Because most of the time, they're happy to do anything if you give them a to-do list. They want their deposit back. So if you can say, these are the rules we're going to play by, they'll be like, great, that's awesome. It's just a checklist, right? And it could be anything. It could be cleaning the oven. It could be cleaning the stove or whatever. It's doing all that. You're not responsible for their normal cleaning. They are. That's always the case. So make sure you tell them what to do. Otherwise, they won't know. Younger tenants won't ever know how to clean an oven. They won't know how to get scuffs off a wall. I've met lots of tenants who don't even know how to clean the lint out of a dryer. So, there's things like that. All right, so they're moved out, right? They're gone, and now you hopefully have found a new tenant within 4 to 6 weeks out from the lease end date. Now I'm going to quickly go through these national laws, right? These are I shouldn't say national laws, they are nationally accepted laws. There's no law nationally. And these are just things that I think, generally speaking, are the top laws that you need to know about, in which we can also help you find for your state. So the federal laws are typically defined by the Uniform Residential Landlord-Tenant Act. I mentioned that earlier. They rewrote it in 2015, which is great. But again, this is optional, so your state may not have adopted this act. If they didn't, then they made up their own laws. But typically, the states that have kind of follow the same rules, and that's what we're talking about now. So, number 2, return of deposit. So what this means is if you have, or when you have to give back the deposit after they move out or after the lease has been terminated, it depends on what your state says, but you need to give them an itemized list of all withholdings. So if they didn't clean well, or if they didn't, if they broke a window, you need to have a repair with an itemized receipt or an estimate, and you need to be able to show that to them and say, this is what I'm withholding $400 for, and and give it to them, and then you can either give them the check, the remaining money back, or you can actually hold that kind of over their head and say, this is what I want to withhold. I need you to agree to it before I can issue any money. That often works well too. And then again, keep that money in a separate account. But typically you need to do that within 15 to 60 days after they move out. If you miss that window, if you wait too long to get back that money, then you lose the right to withhold anything. If you wrongfully withhold any part of the security deposit, for example, if you tried to charge them for painting the house when they didn't do any damage to the walls, and they've got pictures to prove it, then you could be responsible for 1 to 3 times the amount that you withheld, that you wrongfully withheld. So this is common where landlords don't know these laws, and they will withhold, the whole deposit, let's say $1,000, and the tenant sues them, and now the landlord has to pay them $3,000. So don't mess around with it, because typically what I've seen is judges are often in favor of the tenants, and if you're in the wrong, if you're not following the rules, then you're going to get hammered. Number 4, non-refundable fees are generally not allowed, but they are allowed in a few states. So this is where you say, hey, listen, to move in, there's a $200 non-refundable move-in fee for no reason at all, just a move-in fee. Then in most states. So here are the states where they do allow it, but I still think it's a bad idea, because it's hard to be honest about it. It's hard to validate that in court, and it's also just it leaves a bad taste in their mouth. I mean, they're not stupid, right? They know it's a fee that you don't really, you're just slapping it to them. So anyway, number 5, rent grace periods, typically between 0 and 15 days. So what I've seen, it varies based on your state laws, but you have to either give them no time or up to 15 days to pay the rent late before you introduce any kind of fee. I think 15 days is crazy, but I actually recommend 0 if you can get away with it within your laws. Late fees, limit them by percentage or day. So what I like to do is, this is what I mentioned earlier, a 5% late fee, a one-time late fee, and then a $20 late fee every day thereafter. That's my recommendation. You're free to do whatever you want, but make sure you check your state laws, because sometimes they do limit it at 4 or 5 or 10%. Number 7 of our top 10 rental laws, notice to enter. This is typically about 24 hours. So if you are going to go over to the property at all for any reason whatsoever, you typically have to tell the tenant about it. That's just so they can prepare for your arrival. They can put away things that they don't want you to see, which is not illegal. Maybe they just don't want you to know in their business. That's fine. You have to give them 24 hours for any reason whatsoever, and that's commonly across the board. In some states, it's more time. And then, in fact, some states, they don't have a limit or don't have a notice requirement. And I'll show you where to find all that. Again, 8, we mentioned this earlier. These are the federal 7 discrimination protected classes. But in many parts of the country, in cities and states, they have their own laws. So they'll have the federal 7, and then a state might have more, and then a city might have even more. So you look at San Francisco or D.C., and they have like 27 protected classes or something I think DC is 23. In fact, they make all real estate agents go to like a 3-hour course if they're going to get their license about these extra 20-some protected classes. So it can be anything from marital status to sexual orientation or source of income or age. So you know, if someone's getting Section 8 housing vouchers as payment, you can't discriminate based on that because that's a source of income for them, and they're paying, it's paying their rent. So make sure you know what your local discrimination laws are and what the protected classes are. Number 9, non-payment. So this is a little confusing, but basically, if a tenant doesn't pay rent on the due date, then you have a grace period, and then there is a section or a time period you have to give them to pay up, or basically they have to pay up before they can leave or before you can terminate their lease. So many times this is like 10 days. That's where you give them a notice. You say, listen, you didn't pay your last month's rent. You have 10 days to pay me or you leave. It's called notice to pay or quit. And they can either leave or they can pay. You can still sue them later for that lost rent, but they have a choice. And if they pay within that 10 days, then you have to let them stay. That's typically how it goes. Number 10, lease violations. This is the same thing except with a violation. So instead of not paying rent, they are having 5 dogs in the house when it was actually a no pet policy. And if that's the case, you can say, here's your notice. You're violating the lease in X, Y, or Z methods, and you have 30 days to remedy it or fix it, or you have to leave. And they either leave or they fix it. So, one of the two. If they don't leave, that's when you can terminate the lease after the 30 days and file an eviction with the courts. And then, I know I said top 10, but our bonus law is the unconditional quit notices, and this is basically where it's like number 10, but on steroids. So instead of saying you're violating the lease, then you have 30 days to fix it. In these states, you can actually say, I'm sorry, you don't have any days to fix it, and I'm terminating the lease right now. So that works. I think it's a little brutal, but it works, and it lets you do it. Oftentimes, what I find is that tenants can't react that quickly. So, yeah, you may be terminating it, but they can't move out right then. They have to find a place to live. So you're still stuck with them for a week or 2 or 3 or longer. Okay, so again, best practices. These are generally, these aren't laws at the state level, but oftentimes they are at the city or county level. So make sure that you can heat your property up to 68 degrees. That's a no-brainer, right? You don't want people freezing. Bedrooms, anything that you call a bedroom needs to have 2 forms of egress, 2 exits. It could be a door, it could be a window that somebody could fit through and safely get to the ground. But make sure there's 2 exits. Make sure that the smoke detectors, that there's 1 in each bedroom or right outside the bedroom. That's a no-brainer because you don't want anybody dying of smoke inhalation or fire. And then oftentimes anything that's a carbon monoxide detector, you make sure that it's within 15 feet of a bedroom. So in the hallway or right down the hall, make sure you do that. That's just, don't get caught, because if there's a fire and you don't have smoke detectors, then you could be liable for any deaths. It's just not worth the risk. Again, you can be held liable for nuisances. So if they don't take out the trash, they don't cut their grass, they don't, they let the weeds grow, and now there's rats, or they're having huge parties, these are all nuisances in the neighborhood. And if the police get called, more often than not, then they actually start to come after the landlord. And in many parts of the country, they will fine the landlord because of the behavior of the tenant. So make sure you put these things in the lease so that you can terminate the lease if you have to, if they don't follow the rules. And then lastly, make sure you check in. Just check in once a month. That's just a simple email that says, hey, listen, is there anything that needs my attention? That's it. And let them get back to you. If they don't get back to you, then maybe do a drive-by. Give them 24 hours, or you don't have to for a drive-by, but if you get out of the car and walk up to the property, make sure you give them 24 hours notice and check it out. See if they moved out. See if they're not mowing the lawn, other stuff. Okay, so lastly, I keep saying lastly, we just keep giving and giving and giving. I don't want to leave without giving you a lot of resources. And so these are places where you can go to learn a lot more about what we've talked about. So number 1, go to landlordology.com. That's a site that I created. Again, it has a ton of resources. On your left here on this picture, on the left you'll see state laws and regulations. That's where you can learn about your state laws and learn about what you have to follow. I talked about the high-level stuff, but you will have more specifics at your state. You can go through the services directory, where you can find legal forms and stuff, and again, we don't make any money off that. That's just our curated list where we think they're just a great service. Our landlord guides, which I'll talk about in a minute, and the landlord lifecycle. So, again, the state laws, you can find information there. It's landlordology.com/state-laws, and we've done most of them. Everything that's green is what we've accomplished so far. We've summarized them for you and given you links to find them in detail if you want to actually read through code. It's a rare breed that does, but it's there if you want it. You can download all of these guides. We have a ton of, I keep saying a ton, it's not a physical ton, but we have a lot of information, and these are guides that I wrote talking about a variety of topics, and it goes into an exhaustive explanation of what you can do. And we have a guide on rent collection, on tenant screening, move in, move out, and marketing with Craigslist, how to use that well so you find good tenants. And lastly, we're Cozy. So I work for Cozy. I use Cozy for my property management business. I use it to run every part of my property management business, and it is an amazing tool, and it's completely free. So if you want to screen tenants or credit reports and background checks and collect rent online and do that all for free and do it professionally, you can do that here. Your tenants will thank you. Really, they will. They will thank you for it, and you will save a lot of money by not necessarily having to hire a property manager. I mean, I think the good property managers are worth their weight in gold, but if you can save 17% of your gross income by doing it this way for free, that's a big chunk of change. So check it out. And here's also what I want to say. I have a couple prizes to give out. So we have 3 prizes full of Cozy swag. And when I say swag, it's t-shirts and stickers and some neat stuff that we have with the Cozy brand. So I would love to send that to you. The first 3 people to actually sign up for a free Cozy account, you don't have to pay anything or do anything. Just sign up for an account tonight, and then email me. The first 3 people will get those prizes. So my email address is lucas@cozy.co. It's COZY.co. That's cozy.co. It's lucas@cozy.co. And the first 3 people that sign up for an account, and then a landlord account, and then they email me, I will gladly connect with you and give you those prizes. So without further ado, I want to also introduce Matt. Matt is on the call here, and he is over at Lending One, who is a fantastic provider, honestly. If you're looking for financial services, financial lending services, go check out Lending One, because he'll tell you more about it, but they do a lot of fix and flip and buy and hold loans. And that's, if you're turning into a professional investor and you want to buy more properties, which is what I want to do, you need a lender who's going to understand, because if you try to go through the traditional route of Bank of America, Wells Fargo, you're going to jump through all the hoops that they don't actually really understand that this is a business for you. So there's companies like Lending One who are just on the ball. And so Matt, feel free to take it away.
No, I really appreciate it, Lucas. Just make sure you can hear me properly. You hear me okay?
You sure can.
Thanks a lot. So we really appreciate working with Lucas and Cozy, and we really try to always provide to our clients and mutual clients, hopefully, content that is worth your time, and we always value you taking this time in the evening to listen to us. We try to provide great content and things that are actually applicable to running your business. So for those that don't know, Lending One, we really founded Lending One, myself, Bill Green, both real estate investors first, started the business because we were frustrated with the financing options for real estate investors. So one of our affiliated companies had over 150 rental properties ourselves at one point, so we understand the beauty and the pain of being landlords, both on a local level and on a national level. And myself, I've owned and operated some properties, so I have the fun. I actually have received calls at pretty late at night, so maybe Lucas has a lot better properties than I have. But actually, I get a call on one Thanksgiving, so maybe that takes the cake, I guess. But Lending One, effectively, we do really 2 things really well: fix and flip financing. That would be most folks that are going out there and buying properties, rehabilitating them, and then reselling them. And then on the buy and hold, as Lucas talked about for rental investors, we are very active in now providing a 30-year fixed loan, which one of the few private lenders out there, very different than going through a bank, much more flexible. We look mostly at the property level. Real quick about myself, again, Bill and I founded the company and really to focus on purely lending to real estate investors. We do zero traditional financing. We only lend to real estate investors. Myself, I've been involved in both commercial real estate, residential real estate, owned, leased, managed quite a bit all across the board. So I've had one small property up to large industrial buildings for commercial users. So with pretty deep experience and know how to deal anywhere. We have clients anywhere from their first property, just getting started, up to they're doing 200-300 properties a year. So very diverse client base. My background, we're able to really help the investors because we understand where they're coming from. So now I try to focus on talking to, obviously running the business and making sure we're providing great customer service, but really too with how do we help our customers grow their portfolios, whether that's on the fix and flip side or into the buy and hold product. So really that's how we sort of look at both sides of our portfolio to be able to help people grow their business. So again, I touched on the two types of financings. On the fix and flip side, we can literally close a deal in sub 10 days. It's really a quick, efficient process, all online. You get assigned an account manager, you get assigned a great loan officer here. And we're very aggressive on both pricing terms, and we really pride ourselves in our customer service. We have people in 40 states now that we're lending in, and very aggressive on both LTC and 12 months interest-only loans. They're very straightforward. Their prepayment penalties just try to help people get into that buy and hold or that quick flip. So that's really on the fix and flip side, and I touched on the next one, Lucas, on the rental loans where we are today. We have the pure 30-year fix. We have a 5 and 7. So for the buy and hold folks, we can certainly help you there and love to really look at the property more so than the borrower. So we look at the cash flow of the property. I always say to people, if the deal makes sense, that being you're going into a buy and hold project, the whole objective is to cash flow and make money. If you're not making money, then it doesn't make sense for any of us to lend on it or for you to buy it. So that's how we really primarily look at our loans. And that's really it from that side. I mean, I think I wanted to touch a few things that you said, Lucas, again, from our experience being landlords and myself particularly. I really like the idea of the daily late fee after, I know, again, research, we're not your attorneys, so you just have to make sure when you do look at that that's permitted in your state, because there is a lot of different rules there. But I do like that, the daily after the flat fee, because I do know, I had someone tell me this recently, why should I make the payment? I already incurred the late fee. There's no incentive for me to pay this earlier at this point. So I think it's a great tip there. Not raising the rents. I personally am a big believer in this, and every big REIT investor will tell you you're crazy to say this, but for me, I would always look and say, what would it cost me to turn over this property? And generally, your carpet, in best case, lasts a few years when you have tenants. So, and paint almost always is going to be needed redone. There's going to be some touch-up, some repairs. So to me, every single move-out you need to think is going to cost you a few $1,000s. Right. And depending on your rent and where you are in the country, a few $1,000s could be 2 months of rent in addition to potentially your time, energy of finding a new tenant. And to me, I'd much prefer to not raise the rent and make that extra $30 to $50 a month. It's just not worth it typically to me. It's a couple-year payback in most cases. So I'd much prefer to just to take a good tenant that I feel comfortable with and just keep them in there. And then a final little tip, maybe from my perspective, if you don't have all the great tenants like Lucas has, and you have some folks that you prefer they don't have your cell phone number, you can go ahead and get yourself a Google Voice number. It's free. You can get a Google Voice number. You can accept text there, and you can allow your tenants to text you, and they have a point of contact they can always get to. It also transcribes your voicemail, so you can see the tenants who is calling you. You get a transcription right away. So just a little quick. I'll add to your top 10 quick tip list there. But that's it from our side. Again, I think we're offering, I don't know if Johnny's on the line, but we're offering $250 off any deal that you do with us. So if you go ahead and apply online, very simple online application at lending1.com. Just put in a promo code. I think they'll ask. Just put in COZY in there, or just write COZY webinar, and we'll make sure one of our loan officers honors that for you. So that's it from my end. I really appreciate it, Lucas. And I guess we'll open it up now.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Matt. And Lucas, again, thank you so much for being on today and providing very valuable information for our folks. While we were on this webinar, there were quite a bit of questions that came in. So I've got some here I'll start with you, Lucas. They had, here we go, Carlette Smith wanted to know, Shani Payne wanted to know, if you're showing 4 to 6 weeks out, like you mentioned, how would this work if you have a tenant that claims to be a co-op, however doesn't clean, doesn't prepare the property in the condition suitable to be shown, and is really in poor shape? So I guess, if this just happened to her in April, she's trying to get some insight on you on what she can do to make that a little bit of a better situation.
Yeah, that's a great question. It is tough. If you have a tenant who does not cooperate, then it is hard because the property isn't going to show well, and sometimes the property shows best when they've moved out. So I think that for me, and when I've had to handle these situations, I do have something in my lease saying that they need to keep the place reasonably clean, and I define what that means, like taking the trash out once a week, and keeping the mold from growing in the shower, and just keeping normal conditions in good sanitary conditions. I describe that what's in the lease so that I can use that as ammunition later if I need to. Now, that's not going to stop them from actually keeping the place messy, but I just, I try to build a good, healthy relationship with them, and then I basically say, listen, you're not following the lease. If I need to, I'm going to hire a cleaning crew, and this is in my lease. I will say I'm hiring a cleaning crew at your expense to clean up now. It's just point blank. If it's messy enough that I can't even show it, then I'm hiring a cleaning crew, and that's in the lease, and I will withhold that money from the deposit when they finally move out. And now, most of the time, they'll say, oh, don't do that, I'll just clean up, and then they usually will. So that's a way around it. If you don't have any ammunition in your lease and you have a messy tenant who just doesn't want to cooperate, then you can still show the place and just know that you might not find a tenant until after they move out, but it's still worth trying, in my opinion. And then maybe you do the heavy lifting after they move out, and you work real hard to get in good shape and show it again. So I've been able to reduce my vacancy down to near zero in the last 11 years. I've only had 1 month of vacancy on one unit by doing this tactic and by keeping a good relationship with my tenants, and I've had hundreds of tenants. So it works, but if you're a slumlord or you don't, and I'm not calling you one, but if you don't treat them well, then they won't treat you well.
Right. So I have a question here also. We'll kind of alternate for Matt. This comes from Hank Demarest, who is asking, can a landlord own several properties and bundle these to get a loan based on a portfolio?
Yeah, I think for most of the people, you'll find a few things. Once you own more than 4 properties, it becomes increasingly hard to get a conventional loan. So we advise people, conventional probably for first 4 is you're going to be your cheapest route. And then after that, just based on the way that those things are underwritten, either by a bank or by, basically the mortgage agencies themselves, it becomes increasingly difficult after you have a 4th to get that. At that point, you then portfolio lender or a private lender like us, and that's where we sort of start to fit best for folks. And yes, you can bundle them together. You can do anywhere from 2 to 20. I mean, we see people. I think someone brought a 50 doors to us the other day. So it's certainly feasible. Not that much more complex. It just takes a little bit more time. You still look at each property and just make sure everything makes sense for everyone.
Right. Okay. I have another question here for Lucas coming in from Valerie Moy. Should landlords use COZY for applicant paid credit background screenings if the fee is greater than the state max application fee? Example, for her, I guess she's in Maryland, it's $25 max fee. So I guess what's
So, right. So, yes, and the reason why is that those max fees typically say, and I've actually not found one that says otherwise, if they do have a limit, that's what the landlord can collect. So you are not collecting any money through Cozy. The tenant is paying that on their own free will, and they are essentially buying their own credit report. So it's something that they get a copy of. It's something that they get a copy of the background check too, and it's fully transparent. There's no, it's not like a secretive credit report that only you see. So they are buying that and sharing it with you. It's very different from a legal standpoint of you asking for $25 and then going and buying a credit report. So that's the traditional brick and mortar method. Cozy and a number of other companies have modernized that and made it this way and made it better and made it safer. In fact, we spent 9 months with Experian building their flagship product to make this possible that they now use and market nationwide. So Cozy was the company that helped build that for them, and we use that. So yeah, it's completely safe, and if the application fee were $50, or if the credit reports cost $50, let's say, it's just throwing a number out there, it would still be within the regulations because they're doing it on their own. It's not what you are collecting from them.
Right. Okay, great. Another question for you, Matt. Elsa had about the not income requirements for rental product. If you can just elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, so for our particular product right now, the way that we look at it is primarily to the property level cash flow. So you take your total rent and then you subtract out whatever regular operating expenses, and those are really just your real estate taxes and your insurance and any condo fees. And then you would then subtract out whatever your new debt payment, your mortgage payment would be. As long as that exceeds a certain ratio, that's how we primarily qualify folks for the loan for the rental program. So again, it's based on the property's levels cash flow to make sure that the property itself and the rent that you receive on it after your expenses is enough to cover all the basic expenses, including the mortgage and interest payment. So that's the way when we say it's for this particular type of loan for rental, it's really based on the property, not your personal income.
Okay, perfect. Lucas, there's a question here coming in from Charisse on screening process. She says, if I only have one condo that I'm renting, what would you suggest would be a good practice or good practices? How long should you take applicants? What form of communication or language should you use to say yes or no to people? And should you do this via email, text, or just tell them? She's taken applications for a week, for example.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you asked this because this is getting into more of the details on screening. But if you find a tenant that you are accepting, right, and ideally you would review these in the order in which they were received, and that's kind of the best practice, is whoever turns it in first is who you consider first. But if you find someone that meets all your criteria, you've done all your research on them, and they're fine, then call them up and celebrate with them. Call them up and say, hey, I'm super excited. Congratulations, you got the place, and just act like your unit is a giant prize that they just won, because it is, right? It's a huge asset in your life, and it's worth a lot of money, and you're going to give it to them, right? You're trusting them, so be excited for them, and that's when you also ask for a deposit if they haven't already done it. And then if you're rejecting them, there are a couple things there. So what I do when I'm rejecting them is I personally like to call them. I know not everyone does, but I like to call them simply because one of the first questions they will have is, well, why? Why didn't I get picked? And then you can just say, well, we decided to go with someone else. Or if it's something having to do with their credit report or something in their credit, you certainly need to say that. You need to tell that. There's actually a law about that and how you disclose that if it is their credit report or something, you make sure that they know that. And then if you're doing an old-fashioned screening, you need to give them that credit report or show them how to get it. With Cozy, they already have it, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, so then if you're rejecting them, do it in person. Let them have an opportunity to talk to you. And then if they, after you get off the phone, do it in email too, so they have it in writing. I don't necessarily see the need to continue to do it via paper and snail mail. I know some people like to, but I just think email's fine. So hope that answers your question. That's a good one. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that too, Lucas. I have one here for you, Matt. It's regarding the online process for the 30-year fixed rental. It's looking like they're asking for the time frame typically to get a loan processed through your online application portal.
I think Johnny must be planting questions now, but no, it's relatively quick. I mean, online you can apply within a few minutes. We consider ourselves guys that were real estate operators first, but then we became technology folks. So we've spent a tremendous amount of time, energy, and money building out our online application to try to make it as simple as possible. So it should take you a few minutes in terms of getting approved. The whole should take a few days to get you approved. Tops to close is anywhere between 2-3 weeks, depending on where you live in the country. Effectively, it could be a little bit less, a little bit more. So we're very, very quick compared to a bank, and don't consider ourselves really a banking competitor. It's really just a different type of product offering.
Okay, this one is sort of kind of funny, so I thought I'd ask you, Lucas. It's about landlord issues with renters. So we've got Joseph Kristanovsky. Sorry if I butchered your last name there, Joseph. But the question for you, Lucas, is he's got a repair issue that's basically a raccoon making quite a bit of noise and ruckus in the attic. So I thought this would be a good kind of segue to the rest of these questions. And he's been dealing and trying to remove it. They're about just done with this issue. When you have an issue like that, I guess his question is what can he do to try to make this right to the tenant, but also are there any laws that he may be able to find some protection under any damages that the raccoon does, I guess, to the property?
So I've never had a raccoon. Yeah. It reminds me of that Allstate commercial where Mayhem is up in the attic with the raccoons, and he's like, I've already had 10 babies, and you're thinking, oh geez, he's pretending to be a raccoon, but yeah, they can cause a lot of damage, and you need to hire a pest capturer or animal control person who can get that taken care of very quickly before they chew up some electrical wire or anything. I don't know of any laws that are favor the landlord against raccoons. But I think that it just comes down to maybe insurance even. So if you want to be compensated for the damage the raccoon does, call your insurance company because, heck, Allstate even had a commercial about raccoons in an attic. So, look at that there. But be wary about before you file a claim because it often comes back to haunt you and increase premiums. In terms of compensating the tenants, if it's been keeping them up all night, if it's something that is really giving them a hardship, but hasn't made the unit uninhabitable, which is where your legal right or your legal obligation comes to, is that you have to provide a place that's inhabitable. If it's still inhabitable, but it's just annoying to them, then yeah, maybe you want to be offer some compensation. I had a renovation that was had gone on like 4 weeks too long, and I gave my tenants back $400, $100 for each week. So that seemed to make amends, and I suggest maybe you consider just giving them a partial rent refund for some of that time.
I guess, I sort of misunderstood Joseph a little bit that question. What he's saying is that this tenant wants to leave the unit and ride out using his security deposit based on the fact that this raccoon is just driving him nuts, and I guess he can't sleep. So I guess that's what they're trying to do. Use that as an excuse. But I think I got it right this time, right, Joseph?
Yeah. No, that's. It's funny when a tenant wants to leave for whatever reason. It's funny what excuses they'll find. And I know a raccoon is a hardship. It is. If you can't sleep, that's horrible. But it doesn't mean they can terminate the lease because you're still providing a inhabitable dwelling. Make sure you check with your county laws though, because sometimes if it's infested with pests, now that's a broad term, but typically infested is more than one. So if it is infested, then it might be uninhabitable, but then that's a different story. But yeah, I would just tell them, listen, it's still an inhabitable dwelling. I'm sorry you've been inconvenienced, but I've been inconvenienced too. I've had to pay a lot of money, I get this fixed, and sometimes, I can't control the raccoons any more than you can, and just leave it like that. And he's not going to like you, but that's better than a tenant abandoning the unit. So.
Right. Question for Matt. What is the rate? This is Lily Chang. What is the ratio you stated to qualify for rental loan? Example, rent less expense, less mortgage, minimum ratio required. And she asks, and do you only account 75% rental income like traditional bank loans?
Yeah, so the good news is we give you 100% credit, so we don't do the 0.75 like a traditional bank loan. So that's the great news there. That's a traditional Fannie or Freddie type requirement a mortgage company would typically put on you, or a bank. We do not do that. Typically the ratio for Mars can range from anywhere 1.1 up to 1.3. So it depends on the type of property and the value of the property and a couple other factors, but generally that's where it is, anywhere 1.1 to 1.3 after all those factors. So if you want to use 1.2 to 1.25 as an average, you could do that. But we could walk you through we can certainly walk people through if you call in.
Okay, very good. I have a question here for Lucas. When you do the credit report through Cozy, does the renter see the results and then release it to the landlord? What does that process look like is their question. And this comes from Craig Stevens.
Sure. Hey, Craig. Great question. So the tenant sees both of those reports at the exact same time that you do. So they it's shared instantly. So that's the beauty of it, especially if you require those reports. So yeah, I mean, it's not something they can alter or change. Even if there was a delay on it, it's not like they can change it. So so yes, so everyone sees it. It's all very transparent. It's all very helpful. And they're getting a full report and a full background check out of it that they can see or potentially use elsewhere if they need to. So there's certainly benefit for them.
Okay. Question here from Valerie for you as well, Lucas. For newbies looking to rent rooms in an owner-occupied property, are there any caveats or tips for screening tenants that would also be housemates? Sort of a bit of an odd arrangement, but okay.
I've lived in a house hacking situation. That's how I got my start. So I bought a large house and rented out the bedrooms, and I was one of 6 people living in the house, and it worked great because they paid my mortgage, and I basically got to live for free. So yeah, if you're living with someone, you're screening not only for a tenant but for a roommate. And as such, and this is a neat little fact, as such, if you are a homeowner-occupied dwelling and you're renting to roommates, the protected federal protected classes, the discrimination classes, don't often apply. And so I don't think you should discriminate based on those things. I mean, I think that's just a humanitarian thing. But if you're a female and you want to live with other females, like, that's okay. So you're not going to get in trouble, with the discrimination classes by saying women only. Now, if you post that on Craigslist, if you advertise women only, it's going to get taken down because they don't really know any better in terms of who you are or what your situation is. But yeah, I mean, you can pick who you're going to live with a little easier because you're going to live with them. So most states allow for that. You certainly want to check your state laws just to be sure, or talk to an attorney. And then above all, you're also picking for a personality and how well you guys mesh together, because you got to live with them. You got to do dishes with them. You got to share the laundry room. So pick people that you picture yourself being friends with, and then go from there. And obviously make sure that they don't have a criminal past, or they can pay the rent. I mean, that's top priority, but you're picking roommates too. So hope that helps.
Yeah, that's a good commentary on that. I have Jay Dallimore here, Lucas, who's got a question that I thought was a bit interesting. Can you please tell him what your thoughts would be about keeping deposits due to property damage, but when you don't have a move-in checklist due to the property being purchased as is? Right.
That's a tough one because you have no baseline to compare the move-out condition to. So if you're still towards the beginning of that situation, I would go in and say, listen, I'm the new owner. I'm just going to take, I'm going to document the condition and go in and take pictures, even with the tenant there, and just give them forewarning and take pictures of everything, and just so you can document the condition, and that will be your baseline. It's not an ideal situation, but that's the best you can do. It's hard. You honestly can't say you broke that door hinge because you don't know if they did. But if they broke something from the condition it was when you first bought the place, and you have pictures to prove it, or you have a move-in or inspection sheet from when you first bought it and you documented it, then you could certainly hold them to that. Otherwise, you just have no validity. You have no way to prove it, and that's what you would have to do in court. You have to prove it. So yeah, that's a tough situation. You might just have to write it off and play it safe the first year, and the next time you have a tenant in there, just do it right the first time. But yeah, there's not anything you could have done to prevent that, really. Good question.
The one thing there too is, even if you don't do a checklist, do the checklist because Lucas tells you to do your checklist. But even if you don't do a checklist, the bare minimum you should do on any property that you purchase or rent is always take the baseline pictures. That's always, I never did a pure formal checklist, but I always took pictures before the new tenant moved in. There's zero way to get out of showing someone a before and after picture. So that's the beauty of it.
Right. Matt, since you're on the hook right now, it looks like Alexandra Ferrari, nice last name by the way, Alexandra, is asking, what is the minimum down payment to get a loan with Lending One on a purchase of $100K? So I guess we're trying to check out your math.
Generally, it'd probably be $25,000, but it's hard to say because it's all over the place depending on the property type.
Right.
Again, does the DSCR work? Effectively, does that ratio work? But generally, as a round number, $25,000 per $100,000 is a good number. Could be a little bit less. Could be a little bit more.
So I guess a bit of the answer to you, Alexandra Ferrari. Just send us an email afterwards, and we'll be able to follow up on that. Question here for Luke is it okay to pick a little bit about the discriminatory kind of statutes? This is from Lily Chang, to pick a family of pick a family over 4 college kids as renters, even if the income is the same from the 2 groups, or is this discrimination? So you got either like a nice suburban family, or you've got these, young, rambunctious, having keg parties every other weekend, but they're both paying the same.
Yeah, that could easily be considered discriminatory because you're discriminating. You're picking the couple or the family based on familial status rather than not. So it definitely could be, and it's a good rule of thumb is you have to think to yourself, is this a stereotype? Now I realize all stereotypes have some truth in them. That's why they become stereotypes. But the rambunctious 4 college kids are going to throw keggers and all that, and maybe they will, but you can't assume that they will, and you have to just treat them and hope for the best and say that they're not any worse or better than the family. So I've certainly seen properties where family has trashed it more than young professionals, where they have 2 toddlers and there's crayon all over the walls, and you're just like, those college kids never would have done that. So so you have to look at that. So I think also what you can do is if you're in a situation where you've got 2 groups and they're exactly the same in terms of qualifying, look at the credit score and look at also the look at their income too. So what I would do is I would say, do these college kids have joint signers, people co-signers who are signing for them as well, and it's basically mom and dad, and with all 4 of their mom and dads, right, some representative from each family co-signing, are they now more qualified because they have a couple $100,000 in potential income,
right?
Over just a family with 1 or 2 incomes. So that might be a way to figure it out.
It's a good point. So for Matt, just a shout out to you from, I guess, Joseph Krasinowski. He said, I use Lending One and love it. And he just closed a property today, rental property. So I didn't even know that. So thank you.
I do recognize his name. It's pretty unique. We'll give Joseph his $500 after the call.
Yes, thank you, Joseph. Checks in the mail. And a question for Lucas, which I thought was interesting. It's from Ariel Yerman out in the OC. So good afternoon to you. Well, it's late in the evening here for us in the East Coast, by the way. It's how accurate are the screening reports? He's saying that he had a situation where an eviction didn't come up, and it was in the public records of the county, Orange County, Florida. Orange County, sorry, California. Oh no, sorry, Orange County, Florida. My bad. He's in the East Coast.
Okay. So two things. So two separate things. The credit report is through the data is provided by Experian, which we did a lot of research before we partnered with them, and we found that they were the most accurate in the most parts of the country. So they get their data from credit sources that seem to be more. And now, if you talk to TransUnion or Equifax, they're all going to say they're better than everyone else. But that was our independent study, and that's part of the reason why we partnered with them. So you're going to get, in our opinion, the most accurate data for the credit report, regardless of where the tenant is. Now, the background check that you mentioned, that's the dirty little secret about background checks that that the industry doesn't want you to know. And I'll just be honest with you guys. What we do is we first do a national check, and what that is there is a national, somewhat of a national database that pulls up any data from the counties if the counties report it. And we do that initial check, and if we get a hit, we'll go in and dive deeper into the county. There's still a tremendous number of counties nationwide that don't report to that national database, and they may not even be online. They may still be using the file cabinet system, and if you want to get a criminal record on somebody, Edna has got to go pull it from the archives. So there's a bigger issue with just being online that's there. So I will say that Florida has the worst reputation for counties delivering background information to any sort of national system or any online provider. Florida is hands down the worst. So there's a lot of false positives that come, unfortunately. That's why we recommend do a background check. You'll get a lot of information, but you should also, just to be sure, you'll get information about the tenant if they come from other counties or anything like that, but just to be sure, go onto your county's website and also check there to see if there's anything for your county information too. So most of the time, the general background check will pull up all the information, but there are some counties, especially in Florida, that just don't play nice with others.
Okay. Question for Matt. This is from Van Smith. He's asking, for a refi, if the borrower has a credit score, right, but has a judgment, but paying the agreed amount and can provide proof of that, will we refi that loan? Survey says.
Potentially, depending on the dollar amounts and how old it is and the payment history. So that's the definitely maybe answer. That's a depends and is unique on a case by case, but generally, there's certain thresholds that we can accept and certain thresholds that we can't accept, and you can talk to one of our folks, and Johnny can send out an email after to get in contact with us, and we can walk through that with you.
Yep, absolutely. Vance, we'll get something out to you. One for Lucas from Charisse Alford. If you have a disabled vet, right, and they apply to rent to your property, you didn't ask them if they were a vet, but now because of the fact that are you obligated to rent them no matter what?
There is a lot of uncertainty out there about people saying I'm a vet, I have special rights, but they do get special rights, but housing is not one of them as far as I know, and I've done a lot of research. I've not seen it in any statutes. I've not seen it in any federal memos or anything. It's they should be considered just like everyone else. Yeah, God bless them for serving their country, but just because they're a vet doesn't mean you have to choose a less qualified vet over somebody who is not a vet and way more qualified. So it depends on what he's asking you to do, I suppose. But if he's saying he should be at the top of the list because he's a vet, I don't see anything out there that says you have to do that. So again, I'm not a lawyer nor legal advice, but But that's my opinion.
Right. For Matt, question from Lily Chang. Would Lending One offer rental loans on a vacant rental property based on the market rental income from the appraisal report?
Yes, that's a very simple answer, yes. We use exactly what we do is we take on the appraisal, we ask the appraiser to come up with what is the current general market rent in that market. That's something that's on every appraisal report. If you can ask for a particular segment there that asks for that. And that is the number we would use on the rental property.
Okay, very good. Not seeing any more questions. I've skimmed through them. For the most part, I think that I want to thank again everyone for staying through the Q&A. Again, Lucas, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge on Landlording 101 and the principles that you've lived yourself. For Matt Neisser as well, answering our financing questions around our rental product, primarily sounded like today. And just for everyone that stayed to this length of the Q&A, we'll just for you to know, we are going to try to send the recording. I'll make sure that if it's good, that we'll send it out to everyone that has registered and has stayed this late. If you have any questions, feel free to email both lucas@cozy.co for any questions pertaining to landlordology, as well as Cozy, the free property management software. And if you have any questions for Matt Neisser, his email is Neisser, spelled Neisser, @lendingone.com. If you had a chance, you could take those notes that you downloaded, and I believe that the emails are there as well, or the websites, I'm sorry. You can find out more information about both of our companies at those respective URLs, lendingone.com and cozy.co. Gentlemen, anything else? Last closing comments, thoughts?
I think, thanks so much, Lucas. It was great, a lot of info here. And I think we'll also post up some, if we don't have them already, we'll post up some Cozy links on our site as well, just to make sure that you guys have the right resources on a lot of that legal and free advice is great. And then two, as Johnny just reminded me, for participants on tonight, it's a $250 Home Depot gift card that we're giving away on any new deals that you do with us. So just tell your loan officer, put it in when you do the app tonight. Just put Cozy 250 or something along those lines. We'll know exactly what you're talking about. But thanks again, everyone. Thanks, Lucas, particularly.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening and great afternoon for those in the West Coast. Ciao.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.